All right, so welcome back to restocking the 1903 Springfield. This has turned out to be the Gunstock from hell, sort of as evidenced by all the tools that I've got spread out here. This thing has not been a simple restock. Some of the reason for that is the customer had this action, this 03 action, rebarreled to this 256 Newton. He's got a custom trigger on it, and he's also has this box mag trigger guard assembly that apparently is not stocked to this gun, nor was it ever. I'm a little confused as to exactly what it is. You know, I don't know if he bought it aftermarket or had the original one modified. But anyway, nothing fits the way it should fit. So all of the inletting has been wrong. It's just I've had to move everything. Because I've had to move everything, I've had to do a lot more patching than I had ever planned for. For instance, I thought I could get away without having to patch this rear radius on the inletting, but I've had to do that. None of the holes have lined up. I've had to add back in a little shim of material at the bottom because the back of the action was sitting so low in the gun stock that it was actually lifting the barrel out of the barrel channel, so there was a large gap here. So I've had to repatch that, and I had to be really careful when I did that because if I went too high, then the top plate on this receiver would have been above the wood. So I had to be real careful on that. I think I've got it now. It all looks pretty well. So ready to move on. And to this episode is I need to inlet into the gunstock a relief for the safety mechanism. It's a 3-position safe. So I need to inlet that so it goes full down position on the receiver. The other thing I need to do, I need to inlet a relief for the bolt handle so that when I close that bolt handle, it fully locks into place. So that's today's episode. I want to cut that away, and then I want to show you a little bit about how we do that. And then at the end, I'll show you the way it looks finished. All right, so hang on while I reposition here, and we'll get started doing those cuts. All right, so we're going to start out cutting away the slot or the recess for the safety tab. And the way we're going to do that is we'll start out with a pencil, and on the sides of the tab, we're going to make a really sharp pencil line. Got a really sharp pencil here, and we'll get in really close. And the reason we want to do that is because we want that recess to be as close to a line fit as we can, so we don't want a lot of slop in there. I'm going to use a fretting saw. It's a really fine saw, very flexible. So by using the fretting saw, I'm able to get a nice crisp line that I can follow as I begin to cut away that excess wood. So let's give this a try. All right, and I don't want to go too deep or too far because we want to work away at this slowly. All right, so with those initial lines done, then I'm going to take just a chisel and I'll start to remove material, and I'll take it out from center, carving back to the line, and we'll just do this in little small bites. And again, you can hear each time I click that that line. So that's my stop. And we'll just work away at this a little bit at a time. All right, so we've got that side done, then we'll come back in from the other side. And again, same thing, just try to chip it away a little bit. Now, interestingly, every piece of wood has a preferred direction for cutting, and the wood will tell you that. So when I'm coming from this direction, the wood's not happy. It wants to break and it wants to chip. So I can't avoid it. I still have to come into that corner. But again, I want to be careful. So I'm not gonna press my luck with it. So I'll spend most of my time when I'm chiseling going from back to front, because the wood's a lot happier doing it that way. All right. Then the next thing I need to do is I need to take my inletting black and just a little bit, and I'm going to put it on the bottom of that tab. And I'll insert the barrel in action into the inlet, and then we'll just take the safety tab and we'll just tap it down. And like all the other inletting, it'll leave a telltale sign, and I can see where it's contacting, and take my chisel and just remove those places where it's touching. And I'll continue that process. Okay. And in this case, I'm hitting a little bit in the back of the tab, so I'm going to have to remove a little bit of material in there, so I can get it to go down. It's not wanting to go all the way down. But each time I remove a little bit of material, I get more black that shows. And again, simply by removing that material only, eventually the goal is to get to a point where it's hitting all the way across. As I mentioned in an earlier video, the tools that we use for this are the tools that actually work for the job. So in this case, we're using a combination of chisel and sharp file. Now, as I get closer to the bottom, a couple things start to happen. First thing that starts to happen is the chisel. It gets more difficult to get down in there with the chisel. The other thing is I get a little bit more finite control with a nice sharp chisel. So that's my preferred method when I get into these, when I get down into this kind of depth, and I'm sort of getting close to where I need to be. All right, so I'm going to keep doing this. It's going to take a while, so there's no sense in having you sit through all of that. So I'm going to finish this side up. I'll get this done, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how we do the slot for the bolt slot, or for the bolt handle rather. All right, so we'll see you in a little bit. So we finished the inletting relief for the safety, and tonight we're going to do the relief for the bolt handle as well. But we're going to install that barrel in action, that receiver, and we're going to use the same methodology that we used last night. We'll close and lock the bolt, and then we'll take our pencil, very sharp pencil, and again we'll we'll scribe these lines that are very close to the width of the bolt handle. Even though it starts out as square at the top, again it transitions into a round bolt at the bottom. We're going to start out with a square cut, and then from that square cut we're going to transition from a square chisel into this rasp, and the idea being that we as closely mirror the shape of that handle as we can. Again, always looking for as close to that 1-to-1 fit as we might be able to get. So we're going to start once again using the fretting file, and we'll come over here and using that line, we'll start these relief cuts. Something that we can use the chisel and the file to follow or to get started with. And one of the nice things about these saws is that the blade is so thin and flexible that it is quite literally no thicker than the pencil line itself. So you get some really fine control with it if you take your time. All right. So using sort of the same techniques as last night, again we're going to sort of use this in and out process, trying to get this thing to fit. I wanted to mention last night, and I forgot. We have to take this barrel and action out over and over and over again, and every time we take it out, there's some risk that we're going to damage or dent or chip the edges of these inlettings. So we need to be really careful. I need to be really careful that I don't chip it, because I don't want to fix this again. All right. So we need to remove a ton of material here, because this bolt, it really cams way over. So it goes from a horizontal position, and then in the full stroke, it's in a vertical position. So we've got almost 90 degrees of throw on this, and we need to remove enough material so that we can get that entire 90 degrees of throw. Same technique. We're going to start out just by chiseling away, get that cut started. Again, I mentioned last night that the wood has a favorite direction for chiseling, for cutting, and if you're paying attention and listening to what the wood is telling you, you're going to have much better results and not doing damage that you may not otherwise want to do. All right, we're about a third of the way through this thing, and it's really kind of a slow and time-consuming process. When we start getting close to our fits, we want to be careful that we don't remove too much material too fast. It's sort of that adage that you measure twice and cut once. If if we get impatient and then start pushing our timing because we think it's taking too long, then you've really missed the point of art and craftsmanship. Oftentimes I think artists or craftsmen will say things like, it's the journey, it's the experience, it's the moment, getting lost in the moment. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. If you're always thinking about the destination, then the amount of time that it takes to do something, to do it well, suffers. It becomes the last thing, or the least thing that you think about. And we're not a production shop. You know, we're about giving the customer something that they'll be proud of for years and years, and at least that's always the hope. But in the beginning, you, the craftsman, have to be sort of happy and proud of your own work, of what you do, what you put into it. All right, I'm going to shut the camera off. I'm going to get this done, and I may bring you back halfway through or something. But either way, next time we come back, we'll most likely be nearly complete on this. All right, so see you in an hour. This was a lot of work. Getting this recess done and getting it done so it actually fit the bolt itself was a lot of work. So we've got it. It fits. It's a nice fit. And what made this a lot of work is that the bolt itself went nearly vertical, which is not always typical. More of these bolts will come out on a 45 degree angle and be something more like this, because this one was vertical. It just took we had to remove an awful lot of material. So it's done. This phase is done. The inletting is done. The gun could literally function at this point. We could put it all together, and all the reliefs, all the clearances are there. So our next episode, we're going to start working on the outside shapes of the gunstock. We'll start actually doing the shaping, and that'll be the home run. That'll be the home stretch, getting this thing finished up. So with all that said, thanks for watching.